of delight, come hither and see the opening morn, image of truth newborn. Doubt is fled and clouds of reason.
Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. That's almost the beginning of Song of Myself. And now you've got this busy American century just exploding with industrialisation and so on and so forth. Immensely busy New York City, which is where he was from. And he's leaning and loafing at his ease, observing a spear of summer grass. And I think that's very much a sort of root and core, certainly of a Buddhist belief, not that he was explicitly a Buddhist, the contemplation of an object by a subject himself, until you reach a point in the leaning and the loafing when there's no longer a you and there's no longer an object. There's this interpenetration of self and world, which is beyond object and subject. And that feeds very much into Ginsberg. And then at the same time, Whitman wanted to put himself fully on record. Seemingly without shame, although that's there in Leaves of Grass in certain ways. But from that, you get Ginsberg's and indeed Kerouac's notion of laying out a full record of what it means to be yourself, to be alive in this place and interacting with it. And Ginsberg said, candor ends paranoia. And that is again very much a root of Ginsberg and of the Beats, and indeed of Kerouac, of course, as well. Not that Kerouac could afford to be entirely candid, but nonetheless the degree to which he could open himself and display what he displayed about his drunkenness, his misbehaviour, his hero worship, a sociopath, Cassidy, is quite remarkable. Crucially, and I really feel this of Kerouac, he, like Pound said of Whitman, he broke new ground. I mean, he really did. Of all the writers in the 50s, certainly prose writers, he was doing what Charlie Parker did in jazz, what Jackson Pollock did in painting. On the road, phenomenal. The original scroll, which has just been published, there's one paragraph break, and the whole thing was just typed out, seemingly without any censoring. And it looks like a road endlessly unveiling on the page. Fundamentally, Kerouac was, as Burroughs said, a writer. That's what he was. He was always writing, sketching, voraciously, turning the world, the sounds of the ocean, whatever, into the prose. One of the things so seldom talked about with Kerouac is the fact that he never wrote the same book twice. All of his books are so different from each other. And so many of the books where you would have expected that he would have indulged in sentimentality, for instance, Visions of Gerard. I always avoided reading that book because I always thought that, you know, this is about his brother who was practically a saint. He died very young, was it 8 or something? I can't remember. And yet the book is so light and funny. in such a sweet way. It's a total surprise. Tristessa, which I'd also avoided reading, is practically the classic account, up there with Malcolm Lowry, of being drunk, an American, in Mexico. It's an astoundingly hallucinatory and tortured book whose roughness conveys not just a description of the outside of somebody being, somebody seen from the outside being drunk, but the actual inside feeling of being drunk, the body tone. It's an extraordinary book. And that's, I think, crucial. I think of all the beats, Kerouac was the most profligately gifted. I think he taught Ginsberg in many ways how to write, but certainly how to read. The recovery of the body is a medium of expression, like I said about Tristessa. Not this mind-body separation, but the whole being acting at once throughout its entire range. A mental, spiritual, physical interface, the wholeness of the being. Getting back to Whitman.
So a bit about Charlie Parker and Be-bop and the links with
Charlie Parker.
Kerouac, yeah. Because it's improvised, it's all quite structured, isn't it? It's not just free form jazz. I mean, there's always a kind of
that's always a
structure
mistake,
that surrounds it.
There's that stupid thing that Frost said. Free verse was like playing tennis without a net. What he didn't see was that free verse was never free in that sense. It was strict in its flexibility of sound, always. And it was, Williams tried to call it the variable foot. And Donald Davies said things like, well, that's as ridiculous as an elastic inch. But he didn't see the point, and you can hear it in Parker all the time. In bar notation, how many notes can you get into a bar, and then how many notes in the next bar, forming this vast interconnected flexibility of different but intermeshing rhythms, and melodies and harmonies, read Kerouac and the beauty of the notation is stunning, absolutely stunning. Speech, voice, rhythms. It reminds me of Hubert Selby when he wrote Last Exit to Brooklyn, which took him, I don't know, was it 8 years or something? And he just typed it and retyped it and retyped it and retyped it because he wanted to get the notation of thought and expression as accurate as it could possibly be. It's just magnificent. So, and of course, spontaneous spot prosody. Of course it's spontaneous. But it doesn't mean to say that you're not hearing and finding with great delight, as well as of course sadness, limits, shapes, new articulations, new correspondences between shapes. Because you are. Spontaneous doesn't simply mean unbridled. It means what is there.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
Youth of delight, come hither and see the opening morn, image of truth newborn. Doubt is fled and clouds of reason, dark disputes and artful teasing